Hello everyone and welcome to another video on Dragoon optimization, kinda. Today I'm gonna talk about how you can keep uptime on the towers in M3S without doing an uptime strat. So first thing, you want to start the fight with a max range gap closer. I'm not entirely max range here, but whatever. I was scared of missing shields or something, I don't know. The only important thing is that you don't want to use your sprint. If you want to start with elusive jump or whatever, that's kind of okay too. Just don't use sprint because it helps for the first mechanic. So then you're going to do your opener. And then you get to the first mechanic, which is the Larboard, where you have to go out. For this you're always going to use sprint, and then you're going to move out after your Drake's Bane, and you're not going to press Pierce and Talon when you're out. Instead you just wait there, and you go back in afterwards to press your right in thrust. The only consideration for this is that you can either move out immediately after you press your Drake's Bane, or you can, as you see down here, perfect circle. You can also wait for your auto attack, because your auto attack lines up, like your auto attack happens now, right before the AoE. That was kind of cool, you could see it grow. But yeah, you have an auto attack right before the AoE. If you're starting with a gap closer, you can also do the thing which I mentioned in the video a couple months ago about how you can start your auto attack sooner when you're gap closing, which will help you get that auto attack more consistently. But this is without doing it. It's still pretty easy. You're gonna use sprint for it anyway. So just stay in, auto attack, go out, and then press right in thrust ASAP. It really matters that you go in as soon as possible to hit that right in thrust, because doing so will allow you to press Drake's Bane before he jumps away from you here. So here you press Drake's Bane, then he goes away from you. You always have to use elusive jump here unless you're gonna do the uptime tower strat. Because if you're not doing uptime tower strat, it's possible that you have to have both charges of your gap closer as well as of elusive jump for the tower mechanic. And the cooldown for your gap closer is not short enough to where you have it back, whereas the cooldown for elusive jump is short enough. And besides that, there's no difference really. Both of them make it there without losing an auto. So for the towers now, there's going to be a few different approaches to how you're going to do towers, depending on the strategy. So the first strategy I'm going to talk about is if you're doing the uptime strat. What is the uptime strat? It's where all the tanks and melee go to the tower that the boss goes to, and then you just ignore one of the towers entirely. So the tank and melee soak the boss tower together, like just two of them, and then you get 2 dot stacks because you're missing one of the towers, like opposite. If you're doing that, it's very simple. So no matter what you're doing, all strategies, you're always gonna press your wheel and thrust here and then do arm's length. You're always gonna use arm's length for whatever you're doing. So once again, for the uptime strat then, basically you're gonna stand always at like the close point to the middle of the arena from the tower that you're taking first. And then from here, the boss can either choose to go here, 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 here. If he goes here or here to one of the close towers, you're in melee range still. So you just stand here, you press your right in thrust because you're going to roll this Drake's Bane. You press his right in thrust as he goes there, like he jumps like now, right? So if he goes to one of the 2 close towers and you're doing uptime strat, you just roll your GCD and then you move to your tower, you soak your tower here, and then you move back to the middle, you go soak the middle tower. Cool. If he goes to one of the opposite towers, this one or this one, then you're going to follow him with your gap closer, you're going to take the tower, and then you walk back to the middle, and you take the middle tower. For the middle tower at the end, I'm going to skip forward. I cannot skip forward, that's too far. Ah, he's doing stuff. You can always max melee this tower while standing in it until the end. And they just get knocked towards the corner, you're not going to get knocked into the wall. So that's an FYI. So that's for the uptime strat. Now for the what I consider the standard PF strat, at least on EU, which is that you don't use anti-knockback, and then as a melee here, I would either get knocked to this one or to this tower and soak that one. So as I said, no matter what strategy you're doing, even if you're not supposed to use anti-knockback, you're always going to use anti-knockback. You're still going to get to your tower. So if you're doing this strat and I'm taking this tower, right? Then there's going to be basically 3 different options of what happens. So you're going to stand here, close to the middle once again. Boss goes here or boss goes here. You just stand here, you press right and thrust, you don't have to gap close or anything, he's still in melee range. And then you elusive jump back to your tower. I have an example. So boss goes close, and then I'm taking the tower opposite. You elusive jump to it, you make it still, and then you gap close back, and you take the middle tower. So that's for the 2 close towers. Then if he goes to the far tower, that's not the one that you're soaking. So I'm soaking this one, but he's going here. You follow him with your gap closer, like that's the example here. You follow him with your gap closer, you press your right and thrust, and then you elusive into your tower. And then you go back, and you take the middle tower. That's that one. And then the last situation is obviously just he goes to your tower, which means you follow him with your gap closer, you soak your tower, and then you go to middle. That's the easiest one, and the most uptime out of these. So that's standard PF strat where you're not using anti-knockback, but you are. And then the other PF strat where everyone's using anti-knockback. So as a melee, you would stand in this tower, and then you would either go to one of the closed towers. With anti-knockback, you just walk into it. If you're doing this strategy, let's say you're taking this tower, right? So once again, you use anti-knockback, you stand close here. If the boss goes here, you hit him still, you just roll your right and thrust, and then you walk over to your tower, or you elusive jump to it, whatever you want to. You have plenty of time. If he goes here, then you have full uptime. So the other strategy doesn't ever let you have full uptime, because best case scenario, he goes here and you still have to gap close to him and clip on it. If you're doing this strategy, then he goes here, you soak your tower, you have full uptime the entire way through. If he goes to one of the far towers, then it's like before. You just follow him with your gap closer, you hit him, then you elusive jump back, then you soak your tower, and then you go to the middle. Very simple. TLDR, if you're not doing uptime towers, or even if you are doing uptime towers, just pay attention at the start of the mechanic, like right here. Just look at the boss and focus on whether he's turning towards you, or well, like whether he keeps facing towards you, or if he turns away. If he turns away from you, he's gonna go to a far tower, so you just immediately start to spam your gap closer instead of your right and thrust. If he doesn't turn away, just keep spamming your right and thrust. And you have so much time for this. Trust me, it's really not that hard. Although, if you have high ping, there's a lot of issues with this if you have high ping, because especially if you're a console player and you don't have no clippy or XIV Alex, because there's a lot of factors to this, right? So if you have higher ping and you're trying to do this, then you're gonna clip more on this, so it takes longer for you to press right and thrust, and then you're gonna have more animation lock on your right and thrust, so it takes longer for you to press elusive jump, and because you have higher ping, it takes longer for the game to realize you're in the tower. So yeah, honestly, just get good. And that's how that works. And then there's one more mechanic that I'm going to talk about immediately after this here. So he goes into the middle, he does his little dope-in drop, I don't know. And then he's going to do a lariat, but this is the dynamo one. I think he just did it. No, he's doing it now. And then after that, he's going to do a knockback jump. You're always going to use your anti-knockback on the tower, so you're never going to have it for this one. Which means that you're going to have to do this one with your gap closer, but it doesn't matter, because if you've done everything properly until now, you're just going to press your spiral blow here, and then always have it line up properly to gap close. So you should never be clipping on that or losing uptime or anything. And you should never be losing like your auto attack either, if anyone cares. The only auto attack delay that you need to have in this fight is one during towers if you're not doing like an uptime strat. Like while you're soaking your second tower away from him. That's the only time that you're losing an auto attack. Or well, drifting your auto attack. So yeah, that's all there is to it. Just a quick video, a little bit late, but I haven't done Savage much, so it was hard to make content without having a POV and experience. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you the next time.